Hey everyone, welcome back. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I know everyone's having questions and issues, so I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. So we're starting with Unit 7. It's Section 7.1, Square Root Property and Completing the Square. For example, there's a rule that says that for every real number k, if x squared equals k, then we can say that x is equal to the square root of k or x is equal to the negative square root of k. We're going to start with example 1 that says 3x squared plus 75 equal to 0. Remember back in our earlier days, we would say isolate the variable by itself, so we're going to subtract the 75 over. And we become 3x squared equals negative 75. You always want to make sure that the variable is isolated, so we're going to divide both sides by 3. And we end up with x squared equals negative 25. So, in order to solve for x, like the rule says, we can take the square root of both sides. Now notice that when we take the square root of both sides here, we have a negative in the radical. Remember our rules of imaginary numbers and complex. So isolate it as positive 25 and then radical negative 1. And we know by definition that I is equivalent to the square root of negative 1. So our result is x equals positive and negative 5i. Our next example is going to be example 2. It says parentheses w plus 3 closed power of 2 equal to 20. So pretty much it's already isolated, and we're going to apply the square root property that says take the square root of both sides. Remember, if we're taking the square root of radical, the index that we don't see, which is a 2, and the power of 2 cancels each other out, and you end up with w plus 3 equaling positive and negative radical 20. Square root of 20, don't make it a decimal. Factor it out to be a perfect number and a not perfect number. So we're going to write w plus 3 equals positive and negative square root of 4 and square root of 5. The reason I use 4 and 5 is 4 is a perfect number which we can break out. We become w plus 3 equaling positive and negative 2 radical 5. The only thing you need to do to finish your problem is subtract the 3 over to leave the variable by itself. So you're going to subtract 3 to both sides, and your result is w equals negative 3 positive and negative 2 radical 5. You're probably wondering why we were doing that. Well, the next section is called completing the square. So in order to do completing the square, you have to make sure that your equation is in standard quadratic form of ax squared plus bx plus c that we learned back in chapter 4. Then you need to find the missing c value, or basically it could be any variable used other than a or b. Most books use the letter c, some might use the letter n, some might use the letter k, for example. So the first thing you need to do is you're going to take the value of the b and divide it by 2, then square both the results. So in example 3, it's broken into 4 pieces. So the first example, example 3a, says x squared plus 12x plus c. So in order to make this problem become completing the square to resemble example 2, first thing we need to do is find what the c value is going to be. So you're going to take the b value, which in this instance b value is 12. The b is equal to 12. You're going to divide 12 by 2 and you get 6. And then you are going to square your number and you get 36. You're going to rewrite your problem using 36 for the c value. So you're going to have x squared plus 12x plus 36. Once in this format of quadratic form, think back to your perfect numbers, perfect square trinomials also. You're going to collapse it to a power of 2. This 36, the square root of 36 is a 6, so that's why it goes into the back end of the parabola, back end of the parentheses. And then you're going to take your variable x squared and you're just going to write a plain x. The sign of the middle value is going to be the sign of the middle. Since it's a positive 12, I'm going to put a plus sign in the middle. And now we're set up to doing completing the square. I want you guys to try B. I'm going to pause the video right now. If you worked a problem exactly like part A, the first thing you would have done is identified your B value. Your B value should have been negative 26. After you take the negative 26, you're going to take half of the value. It makes it negative 13, and squared becomes 169. So you're going to rewrite your problem as x squared minus 26x plus 169. And then you are going to collapse your problem. So you're taking the square root of 169, and that makes it 13. The sign in the middle is a negative, that's why it's a minus sign, and you bring your x. Now you guys know me. I don't make things easy for you. When I want to give you guys fractions or decimals, you are going to get them. So example C says x squared plus 11x plus c. When you find your b value, the b value happens to be 11. Well, 11 divided by 2 is still 11 divided by 2. Do not take the answer and make it a decimal. You're going to take square both sides and you get 121 over 4. So you're going to rewrite your problem to say x squared plus 11x plus 121 over 4, and then collapse it. Because we squared this value on the end, which is 121 over 4. Well, the square root of 121 is 11, square root of 4 is 2. So you write 11 over 2. You bring your x, the sign in the middle is a positive sign, and it becomes a plus sign. Now, I gave you a fraction in the middle piece for the b value and d, so we'll work that one together. So on this one, b is equal to negative 4 over 7, which then you have to divide by 2. So remember the rules of a fraction divided by a fraction. I made the 2 a whole number, 2 over 1, so I have a fraction over a fraction. You can do your ear piece, which means the outside two numbers multiply to become the numerator, the inside two numbers multiply to become your denominator. So we end up with negative 4 times 1 over 7 times 2, which you then would square. So we have negative 4 over 14 squared. Before you square the numbers, notice that both numbers inside are even numbers. First, simplify. So we get negative 2 over 7 and then square it, which becomes 4 over 49. Now you may rewrite your equation. So it becomes x squared minus 4 over 7x plus 4 over 49. Then collapse your answer. Square root of 4 is a 2, square root of 49 is a 7, so I write 2 over 7. The sign in the middle is a minus, and then you bring your x.